Hello, I'm Angelina Kelly and welcome to Settle the Score. Today we are looking back on the biggest game of the weekend. Yes, Nottingham Forest 3-0 away victory to Tottenham Hotspur. So to get into this, we've got Chris from Spurs Chat and Reese from Red Side of the Trent. Chris, I'll start with you. The fans have every reason to be angry with the club for different reasons, but the fan base really came together to welcome the team bus, got behind the team in the game. The first half, Spurs started well, but then it almost stemmed from nothing. That they go 1-0 down. It kind of fell apart. What was your assessment of the game?
Yeah, as you've mentioned there, before a ball was kicked, the fans really come together and really supported the club, and it's been a really, really tough season. One home victory in our last 15 home games, and this is just not good enough. And I think the fan base feel really let down yesterday. At defeat, I don't think any Forest fan would have even predicted a 3-0 away win at Tottenham. We've started the game okay, but I just feel like there needs to be more grit, determination, and more passion, and these players need to be playing like their life depends on it. And we're not seeing that at the moment. And the likes of Nottingham Forest and the likes of West Ham and Leeds, etc., are giving a lot more fight than Tottenham. And I'm really worried. I'm sitting here really, really worried now, thinking that Spurs could be playing the Championship next season because we're just simply not seeing enough. Igor Tudor has come in. He's managed 5 Premier League games and we've picked up 1 point out of a possible 15. This is not good enough. And in my opinion, I think the manager needs to be changed again. Thomas Frank should have gone a lot earlier on in the season to give a manager, time to get more out of these players, but he certainly needs to get more out of these players if he is to continue. And the players need to give absolutely, 100%. And they need to give a lot more than what they're giving at the moment. And just a very, very disappointing afternoon yet again.
Yeah, we'll get into some of those things that you touched on there. But for you, Reese, with Nottingham Forest, this win felt like a big statement. Struggled with goals this season and you score 3, showed some real fight. You must be happy. Does it feel like Forest are getting their mojo back?
Yeah, the performances under Vitor Pereira have been pretty positive. Unfortunately, until probably Midtjylland in the week, we've not been really getting the results. So obviously yesterday was like a massive game. It's the proverbial 6-pointer, isn't it, with where us and Spurs are. I thought early doors we probably weathered a bit of a storm with the corners. I think Tottenham had 8 corners before we had our first, which we, scored from. So that's a positive because of leak goals from set pieces this season. But once we got ahead, I just thought that took all the air out of the Spurs balloon personally, especially when the second went in. And yeah, I didn't expect to win 3-0 yesterday, but I just thought once we got ahead, we was pretty comfortable really. You could just see, I guess, the Spurs play kind of thinking to the seats really, because with the club Spurs are, they're the ones who are under real pressure in this situation because no one expected Spurs to be down there, whereas Forest, like 2 out of the last 3 seasons, we've got players who've been in a relegation battle and come out the other side. So yeah, it was a massive win yesterday. I can't understate how big of a win that is as well, going into an international break, giving yourself that gap outside the relegation zone. So yeah, delighted with the win, and to be honest, thought we were full value for it, really.
And Vitor Pereira has spoken about how the side have got to keep this, fighting team spirit alive. How key is that going to be that you now build on this?
Yeah, well, Vitor's come in, and because Sean Dyche alienated quite a few of the squad, and it's a squad game, and Vitor's realised that we're going to need players who've probably not been performing that well this season, but you've got to keep them on side because, especially with the Europa League as well, we need to rotate the squad as we did at Midtjylland in midweek, which allowed yesterday a lot of the first teamers to stay fresh for this game. So yeah, it's a team game, and you've got to keep the spirit up and make everyone, we're all in this together, like. And yeah, he was enjoying himself in front of the away end yesterday, but it's only one result. Away from home we've been decent, we've been scoring goals. It's just as home form, we just can't seem to score at home. But when we come back after the FV Porto game, we've got 2 home games against Villa, who I know picked up a result yesterday, probably may have turned the corner. But then the game after that's Burnley at home, where you look at that and think Forest have got to be winning that game at the least. So yeah, hopefully we've turned the corner. We can now kind of push on away from this relegation fight, really.
And going back to you, Chris, with Spurs, Igor Tudor did not do post-match due to a bereavement. That's all we know at the time of us recording. His assistant, Bruno Salto, took the post-match interviews. He insists that the players do care, but acknowledge that they cracked under the weight of the game. What is the issue with these players, and do you believe as a fan that they care?
I think you can see some of them care. I think if you had 11 Archie Grays on the pitch, I think that we would have put in a lot more fight and desire in that game and in recent games. But we know that all of these players are capable of a lot more, and that's the big thing, really, because we all know that every single player can give more, and they should be giving more. And if we carry on like this, we really are going to be playing the Championship, because the results of late really haven't been good enough. I think Spurs are the only Premier League team in the calendar year of 2026 not to have picked up a win. And the real worry here is the fact that next time we play, which is just under 3 weeks, against Sunderland away, we play on the Sunday. West Ham play on the Friday against Wolves. So Spurs could be in the bottom three. And I feel like there is a real, reality check to all Spurs fans now, having lost at home recently to Crystal Palace in the manner and the fashion that we did. And then, of course, yesterday, 3-0 against Nottingham Forest. You've got to be beating these teams. These players have to give more. We have to be beating these teams in and around us. And we're so easy to play against. And that is the real worry. Reece mentioned there about the set pieces. Spurs had scored the second most from corners this season up to this game. And Forest had conceded, I think, the second most corners this season. So, the set pieces should have been a lot better. Yes, Spurs had a lot of corners. We didn't use that effectively. We still haven't scored from a long throw, and we, can consistently try and do the long throw. Haven't scored from one yet. And I just think that things need to be different. Igor Tudor, I think a lot of the players actually look lost. I don't see a structure, and I don't see improvements under his management since Thomas Frank was sacked. And that's the worst part about it. This manager was meant to come in, the interim was meant to come in to save us and be a real impact. He hasn't been an impact. Yes, we had a positive week up to this game of that draw away at Liverpool. We thought that was a turning point, the win against Atletico Madrid. But, the win against Atletico Madrid, let's be honest and frank about it, it doesn't really mean a lot because it's about the Premier League. Premier League games are very, very different, as we found out yesterday. So, worrying times.
And you mentioned Igor Tudor there. For you, should he stay? Is it too little too late to try and change the manager now? Or do you think that is what should happen?
No, I think Spurs need to throw everything at this. I think we need to roll the dice again and change the manager. I think it was a very strange appointment in the first place. And when you look at the 5 Premier League games that he's managed so far, yes, we got an unexpected point away at Liverpool, and it was a poor Liverpool side, and it was a poor game. But when you look at all of the other games, Spurs have been very, very well beaten, and that is the really worrying thing.
I mean, Ryan Mason, Harry Redknapp, Sean Dyche are all being mentioned. Reece, anything you can say about Sean Dyche if they were to appoint him? Any words of wisdom for Spurs fans?
Well, that would be very forward that the kind of couple of sides you were fighting with. One's got obviously ex-Forest manager Nuno, and then it's Sean Dyche. One went to Tottenham. I can't see Sean Dyche ending up at Tottenham. I'd be staggered. And he is a kind of relegation specialist, I guess, isn't he? Although he has been relegated before as well. I couldn't offer any encouragement. Look, if Tottenham that did happen, would Tottenham's players listen to Sean Dyche? Probably not. The football was pretty dire, but he might get you the odd result by a hook or crook. But we'll have to see if that happened. I doubt it would, personally.
The thing I would say, Angelina, is that the Spurs seem to be very easy to play against, and we need a manager to come in to make us difficult to play against. And Igor Tudor used to be a defender himself, and defensively, I thought we were really, really poor yesterday. The marking for the first goal with the header, it was a great ball in by Williams, who of course got the assist for the third goal as well. But the second goal, when you see how much time and space a player of that quality of Morgan Gibbs-White has, time and space, you can't allow that to happen in the Premier League game.
And you mentioned Morgan Gibbs-White there. Reece, it's obviously disappointing that he wasn't called up to the England squad, but in a way, is that a good thing for Forest, to not be playing in international games, get maybe a little bit of a rest, because he's going to be key in this final push?
Yeah, he'd been our talisman for probably since he signed a few years back, to be honest. he's got himself now on the verge of double figures for the season in terms of goals, which is something he's not done before, which is great for a side that's been struggling all season. The England thing, I just don't think Tuchel's ever really fancied him, so it was no surprise to me with where we are in the table that he didn't get picked. But that's good for us because I'd rather these players go away on holiday, to be honest, than playing in pointless friendlies really against Uruguay and Japan, I think it is, isn't it? So yeah, that's great for us. Let him go away, wrap him in cotton wool. Like Murillo, who's really key for us. He's not been caught up by Brazil. So all these players who've not been caught up, just give them a bit of the break, and hopefully they can come back for what's kind of the mini season after this international break. So I'm pleased he's not going really.
And talk to me about Igor Jesus as well, special player.
Yeah, he struggled for goals in the Premier League. That was only his third yesterday. His hold-up play is excellent, but he's just kind of not really got that knack what Chris Wood has, where it's just getting himself in the right positions to score goals. In the Europa League, I think he's joint top scorer, so he's found that competition is home. But he always works hard. You can't knock him for that. And it was great to see him get on the score sheet yesterday. Like Chris said, it's a great ball from Williams, but he's peeled off Spence. It's poor marking, but he's punished them, and that's all you can ask for a striker. He had probably one chance yesterday, and he's punished theirs for it. So, delighted to see him get on the score sheet because we need a striker scoring goals and not scored enough this season.
Yeah, and like you say, missing somebody like Chris Wood, it is massive. I know a lot of Forest fans that have said, how different things would be had he not been injured for so long. Chris, speaking about Spurs players now, I wanted to get your thoughts on Christian Romero and Mickey van der Ven because they've come under a lot of scrutiny. Both of them have reacted to fans. Things have been said on social media, in particular from Romero. Both seem to want moves away. What have you made? Because as an outsider looking in, I've not appreciated their attitudes and I'm not a Tottenham fan. What have you made of their attitudes this season?
Well, we know that they're both top players, and that's another really strange decision, in my opinion. Igor Tudor taking off Mickey van der Ven at half-time, and I think most fans in the stadium yesterday thought that it was an injury-related change. But when Bruno Salter came out and said that it was, a tactical change, we thought that was very, very strange. But the attitudes of both of them too, we need to see more. As I said at the start, we need to see more. And a positive attitude from a lot of these players, particularly the leaders, particularly the better players in the team, the more senior players. And Romero is the captain at the end of the day. I know he came out and done the media yesterday after the game. But like I said, we need to see more. We need to see more physicality. I thought Forest yesterday were a lot more physical than Spurs. Every second ball, every 50-50, everything in the game. The tackles were flying in. They were all Forest. And Forest were so much more up for it than Spurs. And some of these players, particularly like Romero and Van der Ven, need to show some of the younger players the way. But as I mentioned also earlier, Archie Gray is showing, some of these senior players up at the moment because he's giving his absolute all. And this is exactly what we need to see from everyone in this team.
And I wanted to get both of your opinions on Bruno Salto had said to talkSPORT that the poor home record is down to teams treating games at Spurs as cup finals because they're such a big team. Reece, is that what it felt like? And I'll come to you first, and then Chris, if you're having it or not.
I guess, the magnitude of the game was a 6-pointer, but, nothing was decided yesterday. It's a big step for us because we won the game, but no, I wouldn't say every time I go to Spurs I treat it as a cup final as much as Spurs have got a magnificent stadium and that.
It is great. I'll give you
that. I just think he's looking for excuses there, really. Spurs blew it, unfortunately. That's just the reality of it. We got himself ahead and then they just had no answer, unfortunately, for Bruno Salter.
Chris, does it feel like you're going to a cup final every weekend when you're at home?
I'll tell you what, we mentioned this on the podcast last night after the game, the four of us, and we said that, every single team seems to really enjoy themselves when they come to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And I tell you what, if Spurs did go down to the Championship, the likes of Lincoln and Millwall, etc., will be enjoying themselves and treating it like a cup final every week. But you're right, Angelino, that we're having real difficulties at home. We really are, and it hasn't just been this season, it's been previous seasons as well. And, our home record is absolutely atrocious, especially in the Premier League. It needs to improve. And, but I'd say this, so much needs to improve. The decision making at board level, decisions overall, the manager, the players. There are so many issues right now at Spurs, and one of the big issues is constantly losing at home and the booing from the home supporters because they're not seeing what we need to see. And Spurs are down to 17th in the Premier League again, exactly where we finished last season. This is not good enough, and so many things need to change.
And you've spoken a little bit about how worried you are. Can you put that into words, how you are feeling at the prospect that, as much as people have laughed and joked at Spurs' expense, oh, could they get relegated? This is now becoming a reality. How do you feel?
Absolutely. It is definitely a reality. When you see these performances, when you see these results, when you see some of the players aren't giving 100%, it is a real reality that Spurs could be playing in the Championship next season. And, Spurs should not be in this position. And that's not me being arrogant. The transfer window should have been better. Decision-making should have been better. As I said earlier, Thomas Frank should have gone a lot earlier. I don't know why they stuck with him and they thought that he was going to turn it around, because there were so many signs that things weren't going to improve. And then we've brought in Igor Tudor to turn things around and be a dramatic impact, and that certainly hasn't happened. And the real worry is that when you look at all of the other teams, of how they are playing, how they are performing, like I mentioned, Forest physicality, and there seems to be togetherness at West Ham, and there seems to be a very different attitude at some of these rival clubs at the moment, teams around us. And honestly, the worry for me is, where are the next points coming from? Yes, we got that very unexpected point away at Liverpool, but as I also mentioned earlier, the other games, the other defeats under Igor Tudor's management, we have been extremely well beaten. So it is a really, really big worry. We need to turn things around rapidly. I think at the moment we need a miracle to stay up.
If you had to have anybody walk through the doors to manage you for these next great games, who would it be?
I think there's enough people out there who are connected to the football club, who have either managed us before or who have played for us before. And I think that at the moment you need that real togetherness in this squad. And I think you need somebody to come in who has played for the club, who, the club means something, a lot to them, and to get the fans on board, because they were certainly on board yesterday, the fans. But when you keep delivering performances and results like this, it's very hard for the fans to constantly be up for these matches. So I think if you were to bring in somebody who have played or managed the club before, I think that is definitely the route in these final 7 games. But we don't owe anything to Igor Tudor, and my condolences and best wishes to him and his family for the bereavement yesterday, and that sad news. But for the future of Tottenham, I think that we do need to make that change as soon as possible. And we don't play for almost 3 weeks, so this is certainly the right time to do that.
So if Harry Redknapp or a Ryan Mason walked through the door, you
absolutely
wouldn't, either of those you would take?
Absolutely. I think that Spurs need a change again, and we need to get the best out of these players, and we're certainly not getting the best out of these players at the moment.
And Reece, it's probably a bit of a different emotion for you today, obviously getting that win. Do you feel confident enough to say, I think that we're out of this relegation battle? You've also got the Europa League quarterfinals. You're playing Porto. I know the manager spoke about how it's difficult to juggle that competition with this battle that's been going on. Does that worry you that you're still in the Europa League? It could affect things negatively. And yeah, where do you sit? Are you breathing a sigh of relief, like we're out of this, or are you still wary?
Oh no, we're nowhere near out of it yet. Yesterday was a massive step to doing so, because it's given us that buffer again. And obviously, like I say, you've took 3 points really off a rival, and you've also, it could come down to goal difference. And we jumped 6 on Spurs yesterday and kind of clawed them back into it. So no, far from half of it. The home form's got to improve. Like I said earlier, the next 2 games are at home in the league. We've got to be looking at it. Got to be at least targeting that Burnley game for a win. Villa haven't beat us at ours since we've returned to the Premier League. We've won 2 and drew 1, so it's not been a happy hunting ground for them. Although they're doing really well, it's another game we can think, well, we can get a result here as well. So far from out of it yet. The Europa League, no, I've never seen that as a hindrance, to be honest. it's the first time Forest have qualified for Europe in 30 years.
Builds a bit of confidence in a way, I guess.
Yeah, winning games builds momentum, and you've seen that this week because we go to Midtjylland, turn it around whilst making a lot of changes, puts confidence into that second string as well, that they can come on and they make an impact. And then we've gone to Tottenham and produced another win. So I've never seen it as a hindrance personally. I've been doing every game home and away in the Europa League. I definitely don't want that to end. I can't wait to face FC Porto again, especially getting a trip over to Portugal. And yeah, like you said, Angelina, just got to just keep winning games, whether that's in the Europa League and the Premier League, just building confidence, building momentum, and just making sure that all the players feel part of it and can offer us something from now till the end of the season.
I have been to Porto. It's absolutely wonderful. So you'll have a great time. I just wanted to finish. I'll come to you, Reece, and then Chris. For you, who is in that third relegation spot? Who is going to be joining Burnley and Wolves, in your honest opinion, Reece?
I think at the minute you'd have to say Tottenham, but I think Spurs all depends on the change of manager, because they will change manager. I didn't understand why they appointed Igor Tudor. I just thought that was a vastly strange appointment. If they can get that right, then they have got the quality of players to get themselves out of it. But have they got the mentality to do so? Because yesterday they just didn't look like they had, because they completely buckled under the weight and the expectation of the game. So I'd say Spurs at the minute, but you know, Leeds don't win a lot of games. They're still rocking it. They're trying to kind of draw the way to safety. So it's all to play for. Yet we're still in there. West Ham's obviously still in there because they're in the bottom three at the minute. So I'd have to say Spurs at the minute, but I wouldn't sleep on Leeds as well. I think it's going to be an interesting end to the season. As long as it's in us, I don't care, to be honest. No offence to Chris.
Well, I was going to say exactly the same, Reece, as long as it's not us. As long as it's not us. But I think you're absolutely right. I think this could go all the way to the final day of the season, because you mentioned Leeds there. They always seem to pick up a point here or there. You know, where Spurs are losing games, they always seem to pick up a point, and that's vital. You need to pick up every single point you can. But yeah, I also agree with what Reece said there. It does depend on the managerial change. It does depend on the attitude of these players. Like I said, the support has been fantastic for this team, and they need to give us more. But if we carry on going like we have been in these last 5 games or so, then you know, I really do worry for us.
Well, there you have it. Oh, imagine going down to the final day of the season. I hope that both of your nerves can stand it if that is what happens. But Chris and Reece, thank you so much for joining me. This episode of Settle the Score is sponsored by Sky Sports. Stream Sky Sports flexibly on Now. What you want, when you want, no fuss. Go to nowtv.com to start streaming Sky Sports today.